All right, it says we are live. Hello, everyone. My name is Nate Brody, lawyer, YouTuber. I want to make sure that this thing is live before I start. Yes, we are live on YouTube. All right. Thank you. Hello, everybody. How's everybody doing out there in the world? I am here with my friend. You're on this side, Anti Ordinary. Say hello to the
Hi.
people out there.
Hello. Hi. Thank you for having me on your channel, Nate. This is fun. I'm going to be a bit of saucy to speak about all of this. Oh, son of a bitch. Let me mute myself. I need to
Ah,
mind my language as well because you're going to be demonetized real quick. So if people ever want to see me here again, you need to drop the super chats.
oh my God! Thank you so much. Well, it's wild because with this new YouTube stuff, any bad word is like demonetized. It's like it's crazy, and now they demonetize all my stuff immediately. So it's just like it is. Hey, Gene. Hey, Rainbow. What's going on? Mm. So it seems like we had a lot to talk about today. Let me see. So I'll start with you. What did you think about this whole non sequitur stuff? Like, because I know at before you were you were sympathetic to Steve, then you seem to be a little bit more sympathetic to Kyle. I saw us with what's her name? Sarah. She put something out which I thought was interesting because because she's an artist, so she's now sympathizing with Kyle Morris. But what are your feelings about this whole thing?
So I haven't seen what Sarah put out, so I need to go and look at that. But in regards to their response to when you dropped all that stuff, and bravo, by the way, you got well done. Um, but when I saw their response, one thing that really did stand out with me was their complete disregard for Kyle's work on an artistic and creative level for the channel. Because throughout the whole stream, they essentially just make it, and it was just peak irony, it was peak delicious spiciness that Cheshire was sat there just degrading and devaluing the work of an artist. And she is a working artist herself. So it was just like a beautiful little moment for them all. But I think just when I saw them go live, it just seemed like a kind of a quick reaction because you already dropped your video. And I don't think they took the time to actually sit back and look at everything before they actually went live. It just seemed like they went live with it and just started stumbling around onto it to kind of combat the criticism they've been getting since your video.
Yeah, I think the fact is that they didn't. Doesn't seem like anybody actually read through the document. It just seems like everybody put it up and just started just pinging it, which I understand because if you're on one side, it's going to be emotional. If you're on the other side, it's going to be emotional. And trying to kind of navigate this in the middle, you kind of figure out if you say one thing bad about the Steve camp, they all hate you. You say one thing bad about the Kyle camp, they all hate you. So you try. So the best thing to do is just put out the facts. $3 super chat from Christina. Hey, Christina, I love you. You know I love you, girl. Thoughts about In Time last night. Oh, all right. So all right. So yeah, I'll go into thoughts about it. I thought In Time. I watched the stream. Somebody told me they had used a clip of mine. So I was like, oh, cool. Let me go see what they use. And the clip they used was perfect. I love the clip they used. I have no interest. But Nick and Ansgar, um, I understand what they were saying, but I still think they have. I think they had a little problem with understanding just some of the finer details. And for instance, one of the issues that I think they said In Time, where Nick did research on one. I think Nick got what's his name? Kyle. In the document, Kyle had like 6 quotes or 4 quotes from different artists, and Nick researched one of the artists and said, oh, look at this one guy. But he didn't research the other guys. Now, the reason why I thought that was a little interesting was because you're getting a quote, and the quote is you take all the quotes that you have and you get an average, and that's kind of what your market rate, if you don't know what the market rate for something is. And then you can either charge the average, the market rate, or you can charge below that market rate. So not looking at all the artists to see like what was the whole pool, it wasn't really fair than just to look at the one artist. And I think it was funny because somebody in the chat was making that same point, and I didn't even think about it until I saw it. So I was like, okay, yeah, that makes sense, because you do have to look at all the quotes if you're going to say that this one guy is not indicative of his work. Look at all 4 and see, okay, well, you got some people who are crap, you got some people who are great, and this isn't a true average. So In Time, I think they did a decent job, but I think there was just a little mistakes in it. So first, before I get to more monologuing, while I have my guest here and was watching me monologue for an hour,
It's delicious. At least I'm not behind the screen. I can actually witness it firsthand.
But you know, like most of the stuff that I'm about to say, you know, because you know, I've told you about this, and it's interesting because one of the big questions that I got after the stream yesterday, was it yesterday? The stream yesterday was, Nate, how did you get the information before everybody else? You know, what magic happened? What magic happened? So the reason why I had
his lawyer trickery, his lawyer sorcery.
And it's interesting because I had to wait till after the release to the court and to Steve's attorney before I can say this, and this was part of the agreement to have to be able to release the document before time. You know, I couldn't like give my thoughts on it. I could just release the information and now give my actually thoughts about the information at this point in time. Even though I think I did, you know, a little bit in that other stream, but I really just tried to just get the facts out because that was kind of like what I was asked to do. And then now I can just tell you about what I think about those facts. So let me talk about what happened. So remember when Kyle went on Unirock stream and he did that interview, and I thought that was an interesting interview, and I watched it live. I actually watched it live, and Kyle was saying, you know, he said a whole bunch of things, and this was before the judge's ruling came out. The next day, the judge's ruling came out. So I was on Facebook, and Kyle had said that he wanted to, you know, come on different shows, talk, and it was interesting because I was saying for two things. I was like, well, do I want to have Kyle come on the show? I'm not too sure of that. But then I remember we're doing the Magic Sandwich Show. As you guys know, I'm part of the Magic Sandwich Show team. And I thought Kyle would be actually someone who would be interesting to ask if he would want to get involved with just some of the background stuff, like maybe doing some of the graphics and some of the thumbnails, because the work on the Non Sequitur show was amazing. I don't think anybody's going to say that the graphic work and all that stuff was amazing. So when I was on Facebook, Kyle was on at the same time. So I sent him a message and I said, hey, you know, what's going on? You know, this is what we're looking at. You know, I'm part of the Magic Sandwich Show. Would you consider you know, maybe coming back and doing stuff in the background? We can't obviously have you on the show because you're kind of poisonous, but you know, we did like I like the thumbnails and stuff. It's true, like you're kind of poisonous. I can't have you, you know. So next thing you know, he was like, you know, he wants to think about it because he doesn't know if he wants to get back in YouTube, and then if if people know that he's involved, you know, it may just be bad things for the show. So that's kind of where we were at. So then I asked him about the judgment, because the judgment had just came out. I think, was it that day, or it might have been on the day the judgment came out or the day after, but I know it was really close. And I asked him, I said, well, you know, how's everything going? You know, I know you just got this judgment, or is everything going okay? And he was kind of like, well, it is, but it isn't, you know, it's just, you know, he doesn't really know what to do, that type of thing, you know. So I said, well, listen, you know, if you'd like, I have a friend who does this type of stuff, you know, who's a financial guy who can help you out, you know, but because I am not an accountant. You know, you got to know your limitations. I'm not an accountant. I wouldn't know a P&L report from anything else. You know what I'm saying? It just
unless you're Steve. Steve doesn't have any limitations.
Yeah, it's you got to, you know, for all you people out there, you got to know what you don't know. You know, so. Oh, hey, what's up, Parson? Thank you for the super chat, Parsons, $10 super chat. Thank you so much. So what happens is that so after that conversation, I said, well, Kyle, I have a friend. I don't know if this friend's going to charge you. And, you know, Kyle obviously didn't have the money to put stuff together. So I said, I don't know if this friend's going to charge you, but, you know, here's somebody, you know, I'll speak to him, ask him to help you out. And, you know, maybe you can, you know, help him out and see what happens. So he spoke to my friend and they went to work. You know, my friend agreed to do it, said he'll help him out. You know, this should be something quick and easy. Don't worry about it. So they went off and did what they had to do. So before it came out, Kyle asked, you know, well, Nate, you know, I think he'd had like, Nate, would you want to do? And this. So I had asked Kyle, you know, I was like, well, hey, listen, you know, since this was going on, would you mind after you guys finish if I release it, you know, before you submit it to the court? You know, it would be great, you know, for the channel. And I think people have been dying for this information. He said, yeah. He said, okay. He said it was a great idea. And he wanted it to be released in a way where you just got the information. It wasn't like the whole spin that you'll see. And that was like the big fear. Like, hey, I'm going to give this information, but I just want people just to see it for themselves and make a judgment. You know, here's the information. and let them run the narrative after they at least just see the information. So he wanted me to put it out in a way so everybody can just see the information. So I agreed. So that's why I had to do this at this time, because it was if I was going to tell you how I felt about the document, it had to be now versus just putting out the information, because that was part of the agreement. So the people who knew about this was Dragnot, because I told Dragnot, I told Anti-Ordinary, I explained, I told her before. I also told Unirock, because I told everybody that this was happening, and I was going to get the information. So it wasn't just like it was just me secretly behind. I explained to people, this is what I had done. This is, I introduced them to a friend, and they're working on it. So they finished the document, I think, on Thursday, was it? I think maybe Thursday or Friday last week. So they had finished the document, and then they sent it to me. I eventually got the document, I think, on that Monday. I think it's either Sunday night or that Monday I got the document, and I read through it. And I started laughing as soon as I read through it. I was like, okay, this is typical stuff. This is, anybody with a half a brain would do this. But I, obviously I saw there were some problems, which I'm going to talk about. And it's funny because if people remember when I was doing the coverage of the Non-Sex Show, I went on Drag's channel. I did like maybe 4 or 5 different live streams where I said, Steve should sue and Steve should ask for damages. So I kind of predicted everything that Steve should do. And Steve did it. He sued, asked for damages, 50-50 partnership. He did all that. But then I also said what I thought Kyle should do. I thought Kyle should just build a company for things that he thought were outside the business, the expenses. That's what I would do. And it seems like that's what he did. But the part that I missed was the copyrights. The copyright thing blew me away, because I didn't, and I felt like a bad lawyer, but I didn't even think about it as an issue. So when I read it, I was like, oh shit, this is something that's very interesting, the copyright. So I didn't have a chance to really absorb it, but I looked at it, I was like, oh, interesting. The copyright issue is a bomb. And then that night I read through the documents and I released it, as you guys are seeing. And now today I get to tell you, because it was just a release, today I get to tell you kind of how I feel about the documents. I'm sorry I had you sitting all that time, Demi, but I just wanted to get through that.
It was a true fangirl moment for me, Nate. I just got to experience a thing from my bucket list, so thank you. But I just want to get back to what you said, because I swerved off onto a tangent.
Go ahead.
You asked about, you said I was more sympathetic to Steve, and now I seem more sympathetic to Kyle. I think sympathetic's a strong word. I think they're all pretty shit, and I just thought Steve was less shit. I thought Steve got fucked over, but it's kind of like, look how much effort and work Kyle's put into this, and the complicated situation around it makes it feel less black and white. So I put them both on an equally shitty playing field. But when it comes to, Drag mentioned something in the chat, and he said he had the idea that Steve put his hand up Nick's arse and Nick spoke. And that's what I think. I know you are very diplomatic, Nate, and I'm sorry to do this on your channel in case I just blew shit up. And Nate does not approve of my opinions, but I'm with Drag on this. I think probably the reason he focused on one of the artists instead of looking at it all as a collective and as an average was because he knew he had an angle to work with to make Steve look better or look stronger in the case in regards to the copyright claims.
Yeah.
So I don't think In Time or Nick was trying to play some nice, I think he's trying to play a game in the background where he's slyly playing the Steve bullshit, but he just isn't overtly acting that way. So it's hard to call him out on it. And that's just my tea. That's just my opinion.
Well, you know what? I do think I agree with that. I think they took it and took it into the best possible light for Steve. And I think it's easy to say we just looked at the first one and the first one is this. When you could, if the first one was bad, how do we know you didn't look at the second one to see if the second one was, so if you look at one, you should just look at all because they're taking an average. So I think everybody has a particular twist to make with this thing. You know what I mean? What I'm saying, like I don't like Steve. So even though no matter how much I try to let people know that or try to overcome that, sometimes it just comes out. You know what I'm saying? And because it's just the way I feel. I'm a human being. $2 super chat for Wife Gone Wild. Love you both. Thank you, Wife Gone Wild. I really appreciate it. Thank you for the $2 super chat. So
yeah, I guess, but it's just I don't know. It feels a little bit shady. It doesn't feel like, so with you, right? In your example, and I'm biased. I'm friends with you. We speak in the background. So let me get that out of the
Oh
way.
yeah.
But with you, when it comes to your video in regards to Steve, you normally make it quite clear that this is your bias. This is where you stand, and you're going to try and hold to just the facts so that you don't allow the bias to cloud your video. I don't see that happening with Nick. I just see it as let's skate through it and no one will notice our bias, the people that aren't actually invested in the group. And so I think it's just more of a sly way than what you do. Because yes, of course we all have biases, but being open and honest and addressing those and preventing those from impacting how we assess things is the important thing.
Oh well, hell yeah, hell yeah. It's one of the wildest things that have occurred during this thing is first I got another super chat for Yuhan Radak for the morning coffee fund. Thank you for the super chat. There it is, taking that $2 right now. But so a couple of things I wanted to get into with first. There seems to be a lot of confusion out there about where we're at in the process. So I want to just clear that up right now. Number one, Kyle has lost. All right. Everybody must let's just stop all the narrative. No matter what you think, no matter how much you love Kyle or hate Steve, Kyle has lost the lawsuit, right?
No, but Nate, Steve is a really bad person, though.
I know, but that doesn't change the fact that Kyle has absolutely lost the lawsuit. He is not going to win, right? That's not going to happen.
Really bad person, Nate.
I know, but there's a judge who said Kyle has what? Now, we understand Steve doesn't really care about, judges and juries saying that people are guilty. Remember the whole Warden thing, you had 12 people unanimously came to the decision. The judge said he's guilty, gave him time. Steve said that guy's innocent. But in this case, if we got to be reasonable people, the judge has come down on his default judgment and said, okay, you have won. So nothing that Kyle has submitted is going to change that fact. And I'm hoping everybody understands that. Nothing Kyle has submitted is going to change the fact that Steve has won. Okay, so I'm putting that aside. I hope I hammered that home. Number two, Steve didn't prove anything. I want to make that very clear. Steve proved nothing. This was a default judgment. Now, that's the difference between when you win a case on the merits versus winning a case by default. What do I mean by that? Well, I use the analogy of playing some type of sporting event, like a basketball game, right? You have two teams. They're going to play the game, and the winner gets a win, and the loser loses. But the other team doesn't show up. So you can't say, we played better than this other team. You can't say I scored 100 points, right? Because there was no game. You won by default. And that's what happened in this case. So the allegations weren't proven to be true. They are accepted as truth based on the default. So it's just so when Steve says I've proven Kyle to have, been a fraudster, that's not true. What only thing that's happened is Kyle didn't go and contest the allegations. So that's why he is now in default. And it's funny because when you look at a lot of the case law, that's what they say, courts hate giving default judgments. They'd rather give cases on the merits, but unfortunately it happens if you don't show up. And Kyle deserves the default judgment. Mind you, he didn't show up, he deserves it. So just want to make sure these are the things that we understand. Default judgment versus judgment on the merits. This was a default judgment. Nothing was proven. They were accepted. Go ahead.
So someone in the chat is responding to Fiona Robertson, but I just want to put this out there because I think this is something I've seen and I've been trying to push back on, but maybe Mr. Lawyery Lawyer, you can give us a better answer. And it was from Philosophy and Religion said, if there's no contract deeming otherwise, the employer owns all the copyright from the work and the employee has created. Is that accurate?
If there's no contract, hold on, I think I see it. This is it. Fiona Robinson. No, it's the opposite. If there's no contract deeming otherwise, the employer owns all the copyrights from the work from the employee that's created. That is true. Philosophy of religion, that is true. If you are an employee of a company and you do work, yes, that work is owned by the company. But that's different for contractors versus employees. So if in other words, if like say if you go to Fiverr, it's interesting because if you guys haven't noticed, like a lot of my artwork, I've started going to outsourcing it from Fiverr and all these other different places. And if you go there, you'll see the different packages. And if you pay for like the $100 package, down there they'll say we'll transfer all copyright ownership to you. So if you get the lower packages, they're just licenses. So you could, so I, for instance, like my avatar that I have on my channel, I can only use that for certain things. My license is only for use that I don't own that image. That image is still owned by the person who created it. So if I started doing other things with it, I'd have to either extend my license or ask the person to do something else or buy the copyright for that. So in that situation, I do not own my own avatar on my channel. I don't own that, but I have like a license in perpetuity. I know you guys like that word perpetuity. So, here we go. Philosophy and religion. I agree with Nate 100%. And that's why I've been trying to say for 2 days now. Thank you, philosophy of religion. You see? So
that would just lead the further question to be: do you think it's reasonable for Kyle to argue that he was contracted?
Yes, I think there's two things. Well, number one, Kyle was an employee. He was an owner, so it may be a little different situation there. And the second thing is that you have to think about what the partnership agreement was for versus what the work that they did. And hold on, I got a quick super chat. Let me just say this one out real quick. Hello, She-Wolf 461 CW. Good morning, Demi and Nate. Have a great day. Thank you, She-Wolf. We love you.
Good morning.
And good morning. All right. So what was I saying? What would you ask?
And so you said it really depends on the amount of work contributed, and he was the owner of the business, so he wasn't an employee.
Yeah.
And whether it would be a valid argument that he was contracted.
So, like, the businesses, I've in some litigation I've done before, and even some of the businesses that I've been involved with, what we've done is that if someone does something outside the business, that's for the business, we're going to reimburse that person for the work that they've done. You know what I'm saying? I was on a not-for-profit that actually was international not-for-profit, and for the board members and people who did work outside of their roles on the board, we compensate them for that. And that's just a fair thing to do. I think the problem here is in this particular case, there were overhead costs. And you have one side, the Steve side, correctly or not, because I'm not making any judgments on whether it's correct or not. They're saying that there was no overhead costs. And Kyle in these documents are saying there was a huge overhead cost, and this is what the overhead cost is. So now, is that reasonable or not? That's what we have to kind of figure out. Was it reasonable? Were these overhead costs? Did they matter? And second, are they reasonable based on the situation?
Do you think they're reasonable?
Oh, all right.
Asking big questions.
No,
this is why you have me here.
That's true. Do I think these are reasonable? I don't know. Well, you know what? Let me give the answer that I'm just going to be. No, let me say I do think they're reasonable, and I'll tell you why. Looking through the documents, if you look at the packages, because I've looked at some of these packages before for myself, and I didn't look at anybody from the U.S. because the people in the U.S. just charge too much. Like when I look at the packages to do thumbnails and banners and all that stuff, you look at a package, and as soon as I look at at a profile that says United States, I click the next profile. Yeah, because you want too much money, right? So that's the first thing you have to think about. Somebody who lives who's working for the United States and the package of stuff that they're doing. Now, generally, when I've been seeing it, those packages could run from anywhere from about $60 for just some minor stuff to maybe at $500 or $600 for a whole bunch of stuff. That includes music, show production, all that other stuff. So you have a huge range. So what I would do is I would look to see what Kyle actually did. Did you do show production? Did you do this? Did you do this? And he listed them. He listed about 50 things that he did alone. And then I would say, well, how much, if you had to pay someone outside the company to do that, how much would that cost you? And I'm assuming that's why he got those 3 quotes. And the quotes, I think, were from about what, $200 to about $1,000 or something like that. So $200 to $1,000 to do all that type of work, varying quotes. Then he doesn't charge even the minimum. He charges $120 per show to do all that work because he's in the partnership. And he's saying, well, since I'm in a partnership, I'm not going to do it. I'm going to take a loss for the work but I'm also going to, I'm going to take a loss for the work and to benefit the partnership, but it's still a lot of work. So with that sense, based on just that little, this is nothing legal. This is based on that. I think it's reasonable to say, yeah, if you're doing that high quality work and that much work for the partnership, then those are costs. And yes, it's reasonable to assume that $120 for thumbnails, music, graphics, production, and all that stuff, the list of things that Kyle said he was doing, I think it was at a huge discount. So yeah, I think it is reasonable.
So given all of that, do you think it's likely or unlikely that the judge will side with Kyle in regards to the copyright situation?
Well, the copyright situation is something different. When it comes to first the financials, just, is Kyle going to get this money back? It really depends on the judges. Like, I've been in some type of courts, and judges are funny. Most people think judges are just there with the law and says, hey, yes, law, I've looked at it all and I'm making a decision based on the law. If you think that, it's bullshit. I've been in so many courts where judges have cursed me out. You mother, I'm telling you, it gets bad sometimes. And most judges that I've been in front of don't even read your shit. Like, there was one time I did like a 20-page motion feeling good about myself. Like, they're going to read it. I'm going to win. And the judge looked at it like, I didn't even read it yet. Counselor, tell me what's in the paperwork. I'm like, oh my God, I got to, and you can't read it. I can't read my 20-page paper. I got to condense it into like a 5-minute speech on the spot. That's sometimes just how it goes. So that was in a criminal case too, by the way. So sometimes,
yay,
yeah,
yay, the legal system.
So sometimes that happens, but here, I think the judge can go one of two ways. This was an order for the financials, the financial condition of the company. This wasn't. This is, people. I think Steve is asking for a audited financial look. That's different than just let me look at the books and what the financials are. From my reading of the order asked for the financial condition of the company. That means how much money did you make? How much money did you have to spend to make that money? And where did the money go? Who got the funds, if any, are left? So we do know a couple of things as facts. There's no more money in the account, right? Kyle said that. Steve, everybody knows there's no more money right in the account. Absolutely no money. Boom. Number one. Number two, Kyle did the work. No, even when I watched Steve's stream yesterday, I watched clips of Steve's stream. Nobody denies that Kyle did all this work, right? So that's number two. So he did the work, and I think we would assume that doing all now. Well, I'll say this: the issue that this comes down to is, should Kyle be paid for all that work, or should he not be paid for all that work? And that's what it's going to come down to, and that's what the judge is going to look at and say, well, is it reasonable? Do these look reasonable? Is it reasonable to say a company in the first year loses money? Yeah, because why? Because most companies in the first year lose money based on expenses. That's reasonable. Is it reasonable to see that, you had to spend, you would have been spending $800 per show, but you got $120 per show because you had a partner who spent hours a day doing it. Is that reasonable? So that's what the judge is going to have to weigh when assessing damages, because Kyle's already lost. He's trying to see how much is Steve actually going to get. So is it reasonable? I think you can make an argument both ways that these finances are very reasonable.
I don't know. See, I'm kind of like 50-50, but I'm not the lawyer here, but I'm like 50-50. I'm kind of like, a lot of us in a creative field, especially YouTube more than most creative fields, other than music, I think is one of the other ones. This kind of creative field is one that kind of fosters collaboration without financial gain for exposure. Mm-hmm. And if you're trying to start a endeavor like a YouTube channel, and you are one of two people who own this channel, you're going to give your creative resources to have to make this start up. And I don't think you would necessarily, this is my opinion, of course, but I don't think you would necessarily expect to be reimbursed for that work. You would come to that agreement prior. And the texts that I saw that were in your stream yesterday, mm-hmm. or the day before,
yeah,
those seemed a little bit reaching for me. It's like, okay, reach Lux, bring it back a little bit, because that was too far. It felt like, but I felt like in a way that could kind of work in his favor, because Steve done essentially the same thing with his text. His text could have been looked at as reaches as well. So I don't know. I just
No,
think
I
it's a
agree.
little bit complicated and messy when it comes to artists, because a lot of people that make YouTube videos and stuff like that do it for free because they need to provide to their creations.
And you get exposure from this stuff. You know what I'm saying? You get exposure. It looks good. You know, there's a lot going on than just doing the, you know, there is a help for both parties. So I do understand that. But I do think if what I'm seeing is true, then I think you may have, there is an issue of whether Kyle, because that's what we're talking about. Should Kyle be paid for this work? And if he shouldn't be paid, then why shouldn't he be paid? So I think, and I know this is going to piss some people off, but I do think both sides have a valid argument. I think the side that says Kyle shouldn't be paid for this because this was all part of the business and blah, 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 I think that's very valid. I think that's a valid argument. That's an argument I would make. And I think the other argument that he did this work and it was outside of the business is also a valid argument. So, you know, it's for those people saying this is obviously dumb in this way, that doesn't make any sense. Even though you guys don't know, I don't like Steve, but I honestly can say that the arguments that they're making, that this is BS, are valid arguments, and the arguments that the other side are making that these are good, that this is good, are valid arguments in that sense. One of the things I also go ahead.
Because like I was challenging you just before we went live with that same thing, and you said to me, which is I completely agree with it, is that it's just as reasonable to think Kyle done this work for free for the project as it is to think Kyle should have been paid. So in that case, it's just down to the judge to decide which is more reasonable.
And that's one thing I do want to tell people. Like a lot of people say, well, there has to be some type of verbal agreement. You know, there has to be, you know, somebody has to always say yes to this and all this other stuff. But I want to make this one point. People are saying like this is fraud. Kyle has committed fraud. Like this is fraud. But it's the reason why it wouldn't be fraud is because Kyle did the work. See, I would consider it fraud if Kyle didn't do the work and been billed. But he actually did the work, and that's not in dispute. The dispute isn't about the work being done; it's about whether he should be paid for doing the work. And I think that argument is what we're really talking about. So let's separate it. Kyle did the work. Fact. Should he be paid for the work? That's what we're talking about. With whether she be paid for the work, I would also say, did the show benefit from all that work? Did it benefit in a way? You know, because you would also have to think about it this way. Even if Kyle didn't bill himself, let's say 2 years ago or whatever for the work, which I think he should have done. But let's say if he was taking money out, however he was taking money out, then at a point, is it reasonable for Steve to have understood that there's a cost to all this work that Kyle was doing? Or should he have thought that, you know, Kyle was doing this for free? What do you think about that? Should, you know, would
well, do you know what my thing is? Like, I don't fuck with anyone that's making creations for me. Like, I have a few people in my Discord that commit time to making thumbnails for me and stuff, and we don't have any specific monetary agreement. I'm a nobody channel, but I still will pay them and come to agreements that I'm going to pay them. So it's not even really something I would debate. If I was in this position, you just pay your artist or you don't use the art. That's the end of the situation in my mind. But it's just a little bit more complicated about whether he should even have been paid in the first place. That's the thing. If we can agree that Kyle should be compensated for it, then I think there's no debate. Artists that make art for your content should be reimbursed for that. But it's about whether he done that out of like the return in investment being the channel's success would kind of be my argument, is that he's contributing this financial and artistic endeavor, but the investment is to get the channel up and running, not to get paid for that. But you know, it's like you said, I think every side has a valid argument on that.
You know, it's interesting. UKPI says something interesting here. Hold on, let me see if I can pull this. Oh, it's moving. There it is. UKPI. Hey, what's going on, UK? Kyle admitted online for being a 50-50 partner. I'm agree. I don't even think that's necessary because, as a matter of fact and law, the judges said they're 50-50 partners. So that first line, it's unnecessary because that's always a finding of fact. They are 50-50 partners. Fact. True. Good. So he gets paid, but not the whole amount. I would agree. Generally, well, it all depends. There'd be a split of the profits, right? So if the business got $100 worth of profit, they would split the profits as 50-50 partners. But if it took them $200 to make that $100, then they don't get anything. So I don't know. It really depends on the agreement that they have, the amount of work. Because don't forget that sometimes you have managing partners and the managing partner is the one that does all the work. You have silent partners, and they don't get paid until they get a profit, while the managing partner, because that's the person working and doing the day-to-day operations, gets a paycheck because that person is actually working the day-to-day operations. So you could have a situation where the managing partner gets paid a salary because they're doing all the work, and the silent partners don't get paid until you actually make a profit. So I understand the point, but that's how I respond to that.
So you got a $10 super chat US. I'm not sure if you want to read that out.
Yes. Let me put it on the screen. There we go. Thank you both for standing up to McBoomer and his troll army. Steve really needs to be exposed for his childish and foul behavior. He is a really bad person. I agree with you, Demi. Boom.
Hey, don't insult children. How dare you?
Sorry, not sorry. Thank you for your super chat.
Yeah. So thank you for that. And so, yeah, my thing was going to be, could you clear something up for me? And I'm sure there's other people out there confused about this.
Mm-hmm.
Is that Steve is now, because the ruling was that they are 50-50 partnerships, right?
Yeah.
Steve is now saying that he is 100% owner because Kyle something fiduciary duty, is that the word? I don't know all these smart fucking words. Smart freaking words. Yeah. So apparently because Kyle voided the contract initially, now Steve is 100% the owner. Is that how that works? Because if you go onto his stream yesterday, he's talking about the judge ruled 50-50, but because the original contract is now been voided by Kyle's action, Steve now owns the non-sec as a whole. Would that be accurate?
It's possible. You know what? I thought I reread the ruling. Well, the decision, the default judgment, and it's wild because usually orders are a little bit they're a little bit clearer, but this one has some interpretation problems, and that's one of them. From what I'm understanding, they had a verbal agreement, 50-50 partnership, and that was one of the things the judge ordered. So you guys are 50-50 partners. But nowhere in that ruling did it say that the partnership ever ended, right? It says, because Kyle didn't show up, he did all these bad things. You guys were 50-50 partners, and here and now we're talking about damages. So from what I'm looking at, it seems like you could rightfully assume, and this is one of those things that really up in the air. I think it's very reasonable to assume that because it wasn't explicitly said in the order that the partnership ended, the partnership continues to go forward as 50-50 agreement. And the words used like primary owner. You know, if he was the owner, it wouldn't say primary owner. It would just say owner. You know what I'm saying?
That was me, because I was watching the stream and I'm a muggle. I don't know law and law language. So I'm just watching the stream. But I remember distinctly that it was categorized as Steve being the 50-50 primary owner of the channel. And then I thought, well, is the need for the specificity in language if Steve just owns the channel? If
it would
not
just say
50-50.
Yeah, it would just say Steve is the owner. So the wording of primary ownership, the fact that it doesn't explicitly say the partnership ended. Now, you can ask for the partnership to have ended, but I don't think Steve asked for that in his lawsuit. So based on the wording of the language, I think it's more reasonable to assume that they are continued 50-50 partners, but I don't know the laws in North Carolina. The law, because I know in some states they have these laws where, let's say, if you have committed something like fraud or something like that, or the court finds you've committed fraud, the partnership automatically ends at that point in time. So it is a matter of law the partnership ends because you have this fraud issue or something. But I'm not sure if the laws in North Carolina have that automatic trigger. So as of right now, because I don't know really the laws, I would just say, from my perspective, it seems to be reasonable to assume that they are still partners until, maybe until you get the final court order that says they're not partners anymore. But, I don't see either side has a good argument. You know what I mean?
So did you watch the stream?
I did watch a couple. I watched In Time. I watched, I watched Steve's stream, and I forget. I watched a couple of other streams too about it.
So I finally watched, I think, the first half of Steve's stream. What did you think of that?
I thought it's interesting because one thing I think Steve does is that he tries sometimes to create such a narrative that it starts to border on silliness. Like one of the things that he was saying is that the document's not notarized, right? And then he's holding it up. The document's not notarized. Oh, you guys, he's a clown. The document's not notarized. It's not notarized. And he kept harping on the document not being notarized. And I remember to myself laughing at that. And my wife was she was like, "Why are you laughing so hard?" Because I said, "This guy's is an idiot, right?" And now, and for everybody understands why I've come to that conclusion. Remember when Steve first filed his lawsuit, and he made all his allegations. He didn't notarize his document to even start the lawsuit, right? It wasn't notarized at all. And with that unnotarized document, he went through the lawsuit, he went through everything, and then got a default. And remember at the end, after the months later, when the judge said, well, I can't give you an order because you have to send me a notarized, more or less what they call a verified complaint. And then Steve had to go months later and go get it notarized, and then send it back so he can actually get the judgment. And that's remember, we were all laughing about that on the drag channel. We were laughing about that. Yeah, it's a simple mistake, but they should have done that. That is for Steve to say that Kyle's submission is nonsense because it wasn't notarized would make his whole lawsuit garbage, because initially it wasn't notarized. He had to do it 2 months later. So it's just those type of silly things, because
so
again,
regardless of the hypocrisy, though, was that a valid criticism? The fact that it wasn't notarized?
No. Not at all. Not at all. Because this was an order to turn over. Matter of fact, just so everybody understands, he wasn't supposed to turn over the order. Doesn't say turn it over to the court. It's to turn it over to Steve and his lawyers. So I think by turning over to the court and to Steve, it forces the other side to not, like let's say if Kyle just gave me the documents and said, this is the financials. First thing I would do is I'd just take out all of the bullshit expenses, right? I'm like, oh, these expenses are bullshit. $48,000 split it in two, and that's what my client wants. But I think by giving it to the court and by giving it to Steve, now you can't do that. Now you got to answer the questions, well, why you don't think these expenses are valid. So it's interesting.
Where do you think it's going to go? Where do you think everything's going to move from here? I love the way this has turned into me interviewing you on this topic. Right?
Well, I don't know. I'm looking at the document yesterday. Looking at the document yesterday. Again, I think the bomb in this whole thing are the copyrights. That's where the bomb is at. And for everybody out there, if you think the money spent and all that stuff is the thing, that's one piece of it. The bomb here is not the expenses. That's part of the bomb, but the real problem is going to be the copyrights. And this is a catch-22 that Steve is in. Number one, let's assume that Non Sequitur Show paid Kyle for the copyright for the works. So again, this is just me theorizing. I would say if that's true, if what Kyle's saying is true, then he can't withdraw those copyrights, right? Because they paid for them. They paid him to create them. So now I don't think you can just come at the end and say, well, you got to take all my copyrights off, right? No, I don't have to, because I paid you to do that. And that's what he turned in. He turned in the document saying he was paid to do it. So now the part about just withdrawing the copyrights, because after I turn this document over, I think it's a little bit much. You know what I'm saying? I would say no, because you can't tell me they paid for them and then you want them back. No, they paid for them. But I think the catch part of that is if Steve is now saying that they didn't pay for them, or they shouldn't pay for them, or that Kyle shouldn't have been paid for them, and the judge rules that, yeah, you didn't get paid for that, then that means the copyrights, in all honesty, are Kyle's copyrights, right? Because he didn't get paid for it. If that's what they're saying, he shouldn't have got paid for it and he didn't get paid for it, then Kyle owns all those copyrights, and that means all the copyrights on the show, all the copyrights, whatever, all that material would actually be Kyle's 100%, and he could strike down the channel. So you can't have it both ways. Either you paid him for the copyrights and you continue to use them, or you didn't pay him and now he owns all the copy. He really owns everything from the show. So Steve is in a horrible catch-22. Do you say we paid him so we can keep using the copyrights, or do you say we didn't pay him and now he owns all the copyrights outright? What do you
And that's
think?
the thing. If he turns around and says that he didn't pay them, and then Kyle's like, "Well, yoink, bitch, you can't use my content," then Steve's essentially just going to inherit literally a blank YouTube page with a decent number attached to it. Like there's going to be no videos on there. There's going to be no anything because it always tied to Kyle's copyright. So it's either pay Kyle or Kyle has the right to take it down. I don't actually know though. This is me just taking in what you've been saying. But
Yeah.
it just feels like you're kind of fucked either way. You have to bend the knee and just meet Kyle's demands if you want to maintain like the appearance of the channel, or you have to start from the bottom up when it's already a dead channel at this point. It's been dead unactive for ages, and then you're going to fuck with the algorithm even more by removing all of the content. That isn't a recipe for a successful channel. So it's like, if your idea is to restart Nonsec, you're in a bit of a pickle. You really have to just kind of deal with it a little bit, it seems like, from where I'm sitting.
Well, yeah, it's you got to it's either you can't have it both ways. Either you're paying a guy for his work and it's owned by the show, or you didn't pay the guy for his work and he owns it all, and now you have to come to some type of agreement to continue to use his work. So and it goes deeper because it goes overlays, even so it's so much that they would have to do. It would be a bomb. So that's
the thing, because I had this idea before I actually watched your video. I was like, yeah, but they can just mass remove the thumbnails, replace them with something over time. Like they can figure that shit out. But then when you actually look at the court order or the turning over the books or whatever it was not just thumbnails. It was overlays. It was music. It was like everything almost. So it was like there's not a video actually on that channel that won't be impacted by the copyrights that Kyle owns, which should be a bit of a scary prospect for Steve. I'm just going to say that because you've been fucking with this man, maybe rightfully so, but you've been fucking with this man for a while. And like, I don't know where this could go, but it sounds a bit scared.
Yeah, I think like when I was watching In Time yesterday, they were making the argument about, and it's sad because they were like making an argument that Kyle's asking for $120 and it's such a big amount, and I don't ask for $120. I'm like, just because just because you don't ask for $120, what are you talking about?
These are the people supporting Steve asking for a mill.
Yeah,
so I'm like, okay, what level is this? It's okay for Steve to ask for an arbitrary, ridiculous sum, but then when Kyle is asking for something within reason that he can demonstrate, that's just taking the piss. It's like, oh my God, please. This lack of self-awareness just is beautiful.
And it's the wildest part about. Oh, hold on, Crimson is put up I think of something pretty interesting. Nate Brody, can the agreement be made that Kyle licensed the art to the channel because of the lower quote for the art? That's exactly what I'm saying. But that's the crux of it. See, everybody's focused in on the monetary piece of it, right? Should the channel have paid Kyle for the work? So if that's true, then yes, I would say automatically they are licensed to use it in that capacity for however long they use, because they paid him for it. But if the argument that Steve and them are making is that he shouldn't have been paid and he wasn't paid and he, for some reason, then all that's fake, then Kyle outright owns the copyrights. And now he's saying, well, now you have to pay me for them. So that's the catch-22. Oh, all right. Boom. Oh, what's up, Unirock? Unirock's in the building. Just saying what's up. So, yeah. So looking through all this stuff, I think at the end of the day, it's I wish it was simple. Like you can just say, hey, Kyle's gonna win, Steve's gonna win. But I think you have to think about it this way. What was the judge going to do? They didn't ask for, they asked for the books. Well, they asked for the financial condition of the corporation. And what did they get? How much money did the company make? How much money did the company spend? And where they spend it at?
On that note, they made in their stream, the parts I made, they made the statement that they didn't even provide all of the financial states of the business. They just provided some of it, and they didn't really go into the stuff they was missing. But one of the things they were missing was an Amazon wish list or something. That's what they referred to. And it's like, I don't know how much that weighs on the situation. By missing the Amazon wish list, did he missed
Contempt.
something.
Yeah, yeah, it's because that was another word that was being thrown around a lot. Contempt of court, contempt of court. Now, listen, people, it is difficult to be thrown in contempt. Contempt of court is not something that it's such a technical thing where, oh, you missed A, so you're going to contempt the court. What happens is the way courts generally work, and I can't speak for North Carolina, they could just be harsher. But in my experience, when you go to a court, and let's say if the court orders me to do something, so I presented them a document and present it to them, and they look through it and they say, okay, oh, you missed this one part. It's not contempt of court, you're going to jail. That's not the way it works. They'll say, well, hey, I missed this one part. Can you provide this one part because it seems like you missed it? The contempt is just not just going to just hit there. It's a process. Give me more time. I missed something. This whole if you make one mistake, you're in contempt. That's ridiculous. But it's a narrative that's being put out there. He's going to go to jail if he doesn't dot this I or cross this T. No, that doesn't happen anywhere. I got this $5 super chat from Angry Roach.
We love Angry Roach.
I want to apologize to Nick for coming at him sideways last night. Yeah, I saw that super chat that he put up about the super chat that you did about did he now what Angry Roach is talking about is that I had mentioned he had put a super chat up asking Nick did he block me on Twitter because Steve said that he would block him. And that's true. It's true. But he didn't want to answer that. I think last night in the stream, and so it came in a little there. So
no, right? You apologize for what you want to apologize. I'm not here to tell you that, but I don't think that's something you need to apologize. That's not coming at someone sideways. That's a valid question. Nick, grow a fucking backbone. That's pretty much what you're saying. Like, literally, how many of these people have people on block lists and you're not allowed to associate with them? And Steve literally said on his stream, if you don't block them, I'm going to block you. So he's literally telling people you're not allowed to have mutual associations that he doesn't like. And so I think it's a valid question. I don't think that's coming at you sideways, considering he's always sucking. Not my channel, people.
But you're right. He publicly said that, and Nick was one of those people. And that's if I understand they're in a precarious situation, over there because if certain people go into End Time, for instance, their producer says I'm not going to produce if you have certain people that that's a hostage situation. I'm just. But
then you fire your producer. You're like, bye, bitch, you're not my producer anymore. Hey, who needs to be a producer? Like, there's a million people out there. It's like you put your integrity in front of your co-workers or in front of your mutual associations. You need to be able to stand by your own actions and your own principles. And if you're going to go around banning people and blocking people for an association when you have no problem with them, or you even consider them friends, that's just backwards. It's beyond backwards. I do not stand.
Yeah, no, it's true. If the part about the one thing that bothers me about the whole Nick incident, and I don't want to put him on blast, but I'm just going to be honest, is that Nick, like me me and Nick talked. As you can see, he's even been on my channel before. He has 2 kids like I do, so we talked about our kids. We talked about we talked about business practices. Matter of fact, he knows. Nick knows because I told him. Nick knew, about a lot of the stuff that I was doing and my thoughts on stuff, and he told me where he disagreed with me, and we would have good conversations. So it wasn't like I ever felt this guy was a bad guy or anything like that. I thought his endowment to Steve was a little weird, but otherwise we had good conversations. He has my personal phone number. We talk on the phone. He calls me. We talk. We conversate. I've been on the phone with hours with Nick. So it's not like this was some guy. And then to find out that because this one guy on the internet tells him that he can't be friends with me anymore, he blocks me. And and Nick, to be fair, he said, hey, you still have my phone number, you can contact me on Facebook and all that, but I'm nobody's secret fucking friend. I'm sorry I said that, but it's just true. I am nobody's secret friend. If either you're going to just take a stand and say, hey, listen, this guy's a nice guy and I'm going to be his friend, you don't get to tell me what to do or not, what I'm saying? And that's what it came down to. I just wasn't going to be his secret friend. So that's why I don't deal with Nick anymore. Go ahead.
And it comes back to integrity as well. And it's like fake as fuck. isn't it? If you consider someone your friend and you can stand by them ethically and morally and you think they're a decent person, then why are you going to present this image to the public otherwise? Because you're essentially damaging someone you consider to be a decent person by supporting someone just randomly claiming they're bad people because they don't like them. So what are you going to do? Are you going to value your own judgment of people's characters? Or are you going to listen to Daddy's judgment of people's character?
I think that's what it just comes down to. Think about this. If your producer tells you, I'm not going to produce your show if you have these people on, then you know who runs that show? It's the producer. If Steve is telling you, you can't be friends with these people and you can't have these people on your show, then you know who runs that show? It's Steve and your producer. You got to have some autonomy and autonomy.
But this is the thing. Steve did not hesitate to throw Nick under the bus. Like, I saw a stream not that long after this whole rape apologetic stuff. On that stream, Nick is clearly letting people take part in the live chat that Steve doesn't approve of. And then essentially he says to his viewers on the stream at the time, oh yeah, I don't endorse In Time. I don't stand by In Time. Their chat is too toxic. And really he's saying, I'm not going to endorse, I'm not going to promote or stand by my friend's creation because my friend lets people in the live chat I don't like. And it was just, this is the person, you're going to sacrifice people you consider friends for a person who's going to throw your show under the bus at the first sign of disagreement. That's backwards. Like I've disagreed with almost everyone I've worked with, and it's rarely ever got to a position where I'm going to throw them under the bus in front of people.
That's true. Yeah, no, I agree 300%. Oh, before we get back into it, I have something for the chat. Now, there's somebody in the chat, Tony Designs. Tony Designs, I love Tony. So I was thinking about making Tony a mod. So Tony, you're about to be upgraded. This is the upgrade moment. So type something in the chat, Tony, so I can upgrade you to moderator. Tony Designs, for a $2 super chat from Angry Roach. I thought they didn't do cancel culture. Oh, yes, Angry Roach. Thank you for the super chat. Angry Roach, that's my man, but they do. They say they don't, but they do. All right.
And you need to learn. A lot of what they say they don't do, or what they do is exactly like they're just projecting it. They're trying to take an action that they do and just say they don't do it, and that's enough. They don't actually have to behave in that way. They say they're open to criticism. They say they're open to dissent and discussion, but they don't actually have to have those. They don't actually have to have the discussion or be open to criticism. They just have to say it.
Yes.
And
oh yeah,
that's the exact same thing. They say they're not against cancel culture, but they have a dead guy on their block list, and no one's allowed to associate with two different people. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, if you
can say one thing, but your actions speak louder than your words. Sorry.
If you subscribe to if you subscribe to Bill Ludlow's channel, you're going to get blocked. But it's insane. It's insane. I do want to say this though. Tony Designs, I just modded you, but now you have to block Steve and all his crew. You cannot watch this.
Apparently I'm a part of the troll group now.
Oh, welcome.
Thank you. Do I get a welcome ceremony?
Yes, this is it.
Yeah. Thank you. I would like to thank the Academy and my parents. But yeah, they were talking about them responding to a whole lot of shit, and they just threw me in there. They labeled off you, Drag, everyone, and then they threw me in there, and they was like, all these people from the Great Debate Community days, and I'm like, motherfucker, I didn't even exist in the I was making a video defending that shit the other week. What the fuck are you talking about? A part of the Great Debate Community days. Guy are delusional, really. Seriously.
It changed Nate to Nick. What the heck? Uh-oh. Maybe my new name is Nick now. Thank you, Patty Philosophy. Yes, you do that a lot. We're on the phone. Nick. I'm like, what the fuck is Nick?
I deserve a slap the amount of times I do it. It's not funny.
So everybody understands too. I don't know where this thing is going. It's interesting. I think if you go back about 6 months before Steve even sued, I said that Kyle should have done this, if he sues. But I also said Steve should have done what he did. So at this point in time with the financials, it's just going to come down to, does he deserve to get paid for all that work. Matter of fact, you know what? Let's do this. Let's look at the list of stuff that he did. Just to be fair. Tatted.
Put the kettle on. Put the kettle on, everyone.
Tatted, I missed the first one. It went off the screen. Do me a favor. Can you you don't have to super chat again. Just do it. Just at me and retype the message so I can put it back up because I can't find it in the super chat.
Hold on. She-Wolf done a $10 US. And it's like, you two are great together. I would love to see you start doing a weekly chat. Nate would be so lucky. Okay?
Oh yeah, I would be so lucky. That's true.
Thank you. But yeah, I do. We're a good team. I've said that to you privately, Nate.
No, you have not. Troll.
No, we are not in colludes. We have never spoken before. I just popped up in this stream.
And I think it's so funny because a lot of people when you tell people like hey, I spoke to this person, I told this person, like most people don't know that you knew about that I had the information before. People are going to be shocked. Yeah. Oh, Nate knows, Demi knows, but it's true. There were more than there are people who knew, and I told them like, hey, this is what it is. This is what we're doing. So, but now everyone knows because I think it's fair, especially if you want to know how I got the information and why everything happened. Then you can make your own decisions whether it was something good or something bad. You make your own decisions.
Can I just address that for a second? I know it's not a topic of the stream, but like recently, I've been getting a lot of comments and concerns saying that we're all coordinating in the background to fuck Steve over in some way because we all have vendettas against Steve. I can't speak for other people's motives and how they behave and act, but I know that like I interact with people like Nick and everyone else, Uni Rock and whoever else in the background because it's useful to share information. It's useful to know which route everyone's going. It's not a coordinated effort to work on one thing. And so I think like it's a bit disingenuous to act like we're all just planning our moves and dropping videos in coordination with one another because it's really not the case.
I want to. Did you read the super chat already? You two guys are great together. Yes, I want to change that. This was a Tatted put. He said, "I saw we got the public unsub for being friends with Nate." Oh yeah, this is Tatted from the Geek Room. Said we got the unsub for being friends with Nate. I am on a diet. I am not. What's it called? Edgy. You are raw. Thank you, Tatted. Thank you. Thanks for the super chat, man. I'm sorry I missed it. It's just sometimes these things just go past fast. So let's go back. Here's the document. So this is what they said the partnership is. See if I can blow this up a little bit more so you guys can see it. So we don't really need all that. We just need this part. All right, let me see how this looks on the screen. All right, that looks big enough. All right, so looking at this, and Demi, if you can let me know if there's any super chats that pop up. This is what they say for it's show hosting, guest sourcing, booking and scheduling, research show topics, marketing, Twitter, Facebook, blogs, other social media, and guest appearances on other shows. So that is what they both did. And that seems reasonable for a YouTube show, like even with this, we both came, we hosted, it's simple.
When I fall out with you though, I want all of the super chats. I'm just saying that.
Oh, for all the artwork,
Yeah, all the art. You have my image in your video.
That's true. Oh my God. Let me put this up. Hold on, let me go back. All right, so that's what they did together. And how many things? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, and they did it and this was required for each show. Now he puts this up, and this is just showing. Okay, these are also hosts. So these are hosts and what hosts did or whatever. But Steve wasn't just one of those type of hosts. He was a partner, so that's fine. But now these are the things that Kyle did alone for every show. Thumbnails, music, templates, production, Patreon sticker update, ad animations. Because don't forget, when they got new Patreons, now streaming video, intro video loaded, end screen, upcoming graphics, SEO, video SEO, metadata, podcast cover art, graphic tee design, guest presentation formatting, YouTube podcast, and guest biographics. So these are the things he did. And that's page 1. Then you got page 2. merchandising graphics, logo designs, channel banners, social media avatars, social media banners, website graphics, intro to videos, intro and exit videos, exclusive track production, and bumper and podcast bumper music. So all of this stuff he said he did that he just did. This wasn't him and Steve doing this together. This was just him. So with that, should he get paid for that work that he did outside of what they were doing together? That is the bottom line here. I think yes. Some people think no. Hopefully the court will decide.
I think maybe. I'm not even going to front though. I would just be dead. I would be fully gooped if Steve, after all of this time, had to drop money to Kyle or remove the whole, everything. I would just be gooped because it's just this sense of arrogance and entitlement Steve's had throughout this whole process, and his level of aggression in targeting everyone relating to the non-sec, that it would just be a delicious piece of karma for it to just flip around on him and bite him on the arse. But that's just me being a petty little, I'm here for it. I'm roast me, but that's just what I think. I would kind of be living a little bit if this is how it all turns out and Kyle somehow manages to twist this shit to be mostly on top. I would be dead.
Well, listen, guys, I unfortunately have to run. We're about an hour and 5 minutes in, and I'm actually 15 minutes over. But, any last questions, let us know. Demi, do you have any last questions you want to ask?
No, I think I got it as you were talking about it. Just, yeah, I think you've done really good. Well done on the video, because you dropped that before everyone, and I was so hyped for you. It was just like, oh, that was a boss play.
Yeah, and I do want to say, I appreciate Kyle for allowing me to drop it before because he could have just said, hell no, I'm going to drop it to the court and let it happen. But, it was cool that he allowed me to do it. Also, Unirock got it too. So, there were a couple of us who got it early, which was, which I appreciate. So, but again, when you help people out and you're nice to people, then sometimes they bless you. So it was cool. I appreciate it. Oh, yes, that's true. That's true. See, I got dragged. Also, for a quick show, head to Dragnot Silver's channel. He's doing a show right after this one. He's going to be talking about some things. So check him out. Drag, if you can, drop your link to your channel in the chat. So, guys, we've come to the end of this stream. My name is Nate. Anti-Ordinary, do you have any final words?
Thank you for the honor of having me on your channel. I would like to thank the Academy again. This has been everything. And thank you to everyone for watching. Yes, thank you for everyone for watching. I hope this was informative. And at the end of the day, I know people are going to be like, oh my God, they couldn't give us any answers, but that's just the way law is. It's sometimes it's clear and sometimes it's just not. And this is just not clear. It really, again, the question that everyone has to answer is, should Kyle get paid for his stuff? And again, the bomb is the copyright. The copyright is a problem. I don't care what anybody's telling you. You have to, that's something that has to be contended with. So anyway, my name is Nate, lawyer, YouTuber, Anti-Ordinary. Please go check out her channel. That description is going to be in the description of this video if you want to check out her channel. And please subscribe. If any of my mods are kind enough, please drop Demi's channel link in the chat. I am going to get out of here. Thanks again for all the people who submitted super chats. And if I missed anybody's super chat, please let me know because I will be doing it next stream. Thanks again, everybody. And I am out of here. Peace. Bye. Uh-oh.